Factor that does play a role in your suspension and does play a role in your lap time that I want to talk about when we'd gone over quite a bit with chain and sprockets earlier is the gearing of the bike. All right, sprockets are cheap. I suggest you have several. It's not that hard to change them. Most people, it's easy enough to get set up for a given track before you get there. Hop on the internet group, that's relevant to your bike, your club, your track you're going to, and say, hey, I've got an F4. What gearing should I run? Well, let's pick a better bike, a GSXR, right? It's the more popular race bike. Hardy har har. So ask people. They've got the answers, right? They'll say, okay, I commonly use this gearing. All right. Now, if you're at the track and you happen to talk to Sean Higby, right? And Sean Higby says, I run, 1543. Well, odds are you're not going to run the same gearing as Sean Higby. You need to find somebody running the same lap time as you, right? You might run 1547, all right, because you're just not going to pull the mile an hour or the speed out of the turns. Now, how does the gearing affect your chassis? I'll show you. There's an important relationship that we'll get to in the chassis geometry section that's about anti-squat. So it's important to know that the gearing will affect the way your bike goes around the track, not just in top speed and acceleration, but in lap time as well. Now, everybody understands that bigger front sprocket, smaller rear sprocket equals more top speed and less acceleration, right? Small front sprocket, big rear sprocket equals more acceleration, less top speed, okay? In most places you can get a little gearing chart that will print out relationships so that you can help you determine if you want to make a little jump or a bigger jump, where to go. If you're at a given track and you're up in the air about what gearing to run, let's say that the oldest possible rule of thumb that apply to some place you've never been in your whole life, you want to find the gearing that will allow you to pull maximum RPM in 6th gear on the longest straightaway on the track. If you're at a little teeny track, you may not even use 6th gear, so set it up to pull 5th gear, right? But for the most part, you're at a big track, Road Atlanta, you want to pull top red line, top gear at the end of the longest straightaway. Now, if you have any doubt, you're on the edge, what should I do? Always pick the taller gearing, okay? Because you'll ride into your gearing, as they say. So if you are a beginner rider and you're going a minute 45 at Road Atlanta, you could go faster the next lap just because you tried a little bit harder, right? You'll gain some confidence, you'll go faster. So you may get a better drive out of turn 7 and you may end up with a faster terminal speed just because you tried harder one time, right? As you're learning, right? When you're going through that learning process. So don't pick the short gearing because you're liable to end up out there for 30 minutes in a practice session hitting the rev limiter every time you go down the straightaway. So pick the taller gearing, you'll ride into it. If you get used to riding in the lower gearing, you'll get used to the acceleration and feel out of all the turns, and when you move up to the bigger gearing just in morning practice before the race, your shift points might not be right, your head won't be right, so always try and ride into taller gearing as you go, right? And like I said, we'll explain the mechanics of how this is affected in the geometry chapter, right? So, and we've talked about all of that. So, our bike is now baselined. We know it's not puking, leaking. Our components work. We've got our sag set. We got our damping baselined. Our bike's on the trailer. We're going to roll it off, and now we're going to go for a ride around the track. And so this will complete the second segment of our video, of our second video here. And now we'll move on and we'll get going in the third one here in a minute, which will be trackside riding, trackside analysis, and trackside dial-in, okay?